Hello and welcome to the British Dapper, and today we're talking about my shoe care maintenance routine. So this video is inspired by a fellow Dapper. First name's Daniel, and we regularly meet on certain clothing forums, and he suggested he'd like to see more videos about my shoe care routine. And as it happens, today I went into town like most people do. It was a lovely sunny start to the day. Went into town to meet a few friends for a coffee and a catch up. And whilst I was out, it started to rain. And then it turned to a little bit of drizzle, and then it dried up again. But by the time I got home, my shoes were a little bit damp because of the wet pavements, and a little bit of spray on them from when you're walking around in damp conditions. So as you can see here, although they're not really dirty, they are a little bit grubby, and on the sole unit as well, you can clearly see they are damp with a little bit of mud on them. This routine is something that I do on a literally daily basis, so even if it's been dry conditions, I still consider, do I need to do this? So let's just talk about the boots that you can see there. Now these are Oliver Sweeney boots. They're a chucker boot. They are a spade-like design. They're inspired by an Italian sort of look to them. They are a chucker boot, but they are 100% leather, really well made. There's a medallion on the toe cap there as well. They are essentially about £380 new. So when you're spending that sort of money, you don't really want to leave them damp in a cupboard, unprotected. They will eventually get mildew or mould on them. The soles will obviously not be very good. Water does have a habit of breaking things down quite naturally. And if you ask any soldier about how they break in a new pair of boots, most of them will say the first thing that happens is you have to get them completely wet and then go out for a run in them, and the water literally breaks the leather down and makes it much more supple from its new condition, and that's great for a pair of military boots. But when you're spending this sort of money on a pair of boots or shoes and you want to keep them as long as possible, that's not really the ideal way of doing things. So you want to keep them in as good a condition as possible. So that's what we're talking about today, my care and maintenance routine for my shoes and boots. Now, as I said, I've come home today and these are a little bit damp, not majorly so, but what I do need to do is give them a quick wash just to get any debris off them. At this time of the year, it's not uncommon to see a bit of salt on the roads or on the pavements, and even though you can't necessarily see it, there is a residue there, and that can obviously affect the shoes and boots as well. So I do give them a quick wash over with a damp cloth, and in the welts itself I get in there with a damp toothbrush just to give them a quick clean, and also the sole unit, just give them a clean just to get any mud off them or any grit. The reason why I wet them even though they're already wet is because if you let them dry out and there is residual dust on them or dirt on them, when you actually use a cloth and rub the dirt off, you actually are making a form of sandpaper with the grit that's already on them, and it actually does a little bit of damage to the polish. It strips off the polish a little bit. So it's just easier. Water is a good lubricant and it washes the dirt off a lot easier. Then all we need to do is leave them to dry out naturally. I tend to put them on the side and leave them on a piece of newspaper just to absorb any dampness, or a dry cloth was ideal. So here we are at the sink. all I do first of all is I use these are shoe trees. Even though these are not designed specifically for boots, they're more for shoes, but they do what I need them to do, which is to stretch this part of the shoe and keep the heel in a good shape. So that's the shoes done. I now just have a normal toothbrush and a simple cloth to use. Just dampen the cloth down. Dampen the cloth down. And just give them a quick wipe over. A light wipe, no need to rub hard. We're only getting any sort of damp or watermarks off them from when we've been walking in the town. Same with the other one. Now, doesn't look like this is really necessary, but if you're into a routine of doing these things all the time, it becomes second nature and you don't forget to do something like this when it is actually needed in more difficult circumstances. So on here, I tend to wipe the middle part of the shoe and just wipe the heel and the actual main part of the sole. This is just to get any dirt off them. So as you can see, they are clean. They're a little bit damp, but they're ideal because we just need to do this now. A little bit of water on there just to go through into the crevice there to make sure we get any debris out. And then once we've done that, we simply need to put them on some newspaper to dry out. For purposes of the video, I'm going to do that here. So here we are the following day, and the shoes have dried off, and so now really all that's left is to give them a coat of polish and give them a quick buff up. Now the one thing I would stress is try not to stick with the same pair of shoes all the time. If you have the ability to have several pairs of shoes, then try and rotate them so you don't get too much wear all in succession. And it gives the shoe time to relax in between wears and reshape with the shoe tree inside. So, for example, although these look the same, these are a burgundy shoe version of the same shoe or same design. Again, these retail at around about £280. So as you can imagine, if you've got quite a few shoes in your collection, it can really cost quite a lot to replace. And so even though it seems a little bit over the top what I'm suggesting you do, in the long term you'll probably be able to sustain more wear out of your shoes. So just getting back onto subject again, when it comes to the boots, all we need to do is give them a quick layer of polish and then give them a quick buff off with a brush. So here's my shoe kit, pretty straightforward. Polishers, different types of brushes for light coloured shoes, mid coloured browns and blacks. And I have a put on brush, a take off brush, and then some buffing brushes. It doesn't have to be as elaborate as this, but this is what I tend to keep my stuff in. So in this case, we're going to use the brown polish, and we need to take out the two brushes responsible for that colour, and obviously a buffing brush. So all we need to do now, put on a quick layer of polish and let it rest for a while once we've put it on. It's not science with this, it's very simple, straightforward. Make sure you get well into that welt and also around the outer edges of the shoe. Now you can obviously do this overnight once it is dry, and then in the morning you'll have a residue of polish left on the shoe. I tend to do this gap here just to give it a little bit of polish for protection and keep it in good order. And the same with the other boot. Okay, but on this occasion we're just going to focus on the one boot. So we just let it rest for a while and then we take the polish off. So here we are, 10-15 minutes later, and the polish has dried off and we're ready to give them a quick brush up. Because they're polished on a regular basis, it doesn't take long to give them a quick buff up. And it's amazing how quickly they come back. Again, get right inside the welt. And don't forget, if you're going to do the underside thing, make sure you catch that as well. So I use another brush just to give it a finer buff. Now the thing is with any pair of shoes, when you're using polish, it's really friction that gives you the high shine. So don't be afraid to put a bit of elbow grease in on them. So here we are. They're completed and ready for the next wear. So we've already got a shoe tree in them. But what I tend to do then is I'll put them into either a lint bag or in the original box they came in with tissue paper around them, and to give them as much protection as possible. But that's fine if you're just giving them a quick polish and you don't give your shoes or boots a mirror shine. But I've got another pair here that I've worn a couple of times, and I've gone through the same process up to this point, but all they need is a little bit of a mirror shine just to finish them off. So here we are. You've seen these before, but because I've already cleaned them, I've polished them, they actually need a mirror shine just on the toe cap, just to give them a little finish off. Now because they're regularly mirror shined, It won't take long, just to give them about 10-15 minute mirror shine, and brings them back up to scratch again, ready for the next wear. So for the mirror shine, all I do, because it's a regular basis that I do this, I use a cotton wool ball, bit of iced water, and this is a light tan, mid-tanned polish, just a little smearing of it onto the actual cotton wool ball, and then we just apply in light pressure like you're polishing an egg, and we just go round in circles. There is another method where you go lengthways. It doesn't really matter. The idea is it's light pressure and building up a little bit of friction. The trouble is not too much friction, otherwise you take the polish off, and that's why it's a very light pressure on the actual shoe. And then once you see the polish disappearing, then we're in a position where we can just put a little smear on again and start with the next layer. Now, when it comes to shoes and polish, it's becoming rarer and rarer to see people wearing shoes that actually need polish. And unfortunately, in the UK, the brand that I use, Kiwi, is no longer going to export to the UK because the UK no longer, there's not enough people really using the stuff in the UK for them to use it. I mean, it's ridiculous really, because the people that wear trainers and stuff like that, you don't see an increase in sales in cleaner materials for those trainers. And when you see people in the high street, 9 times out of 10 their trainers are grubby and not particularly good, and they don't stand out. Whereas nowadays, when you see somebody wearing a pair of shoes, that in itself draws attention and it's considered very smart. But if you put a mirror shine on a pair of shoes, even if it's just a mild one, it draws even more attention. So I would say don't be afraid to give your shoes a little bit of a mirror shine, especially if you're going for a job interview. It's amazing how many good comments you get from this process. Now, because this has got broguing on the toes, just remember, not too much water and not too much polish. Okay, if you do get too much polish in the brogue holes, all you need to do is just use a light brush and dab it, and it will pull all the polish out of the holes. But if you're doing it very lightly with small amounts of polish, you shouldn't have a problem with it doing that in the first place. So there we go. Now I know a lot of people will say, but the Philistine, he hasn't even taken the laces out, let alone paid any attention to the tongue of the shoe as well. Well, as I said, this is my regular routine. Every now and again though, I will remove the laces, and I do polish the tongue as well on the inside to give it the full attention. But this is really just to get it to a standard that I can put this away in the cupboard along with all my other shoes, and say for example I suddenly wanted a change of wardrobe through the day. Suddenly my wife will say, well, let's go out, we've got to go out this evening, we've got a surprise party, or we've got to do this or do that, and it requires me to get changed quickly. I know I can go to that wardrobe, pull out any pair of shoes I want, and they're ready to go. It might need a little bit of a clean, but generally they are in good condition. Bulled up if they're needed. Some shoes I don't bull up because they're so regularly used and they are fine as a high shine. So I do have sort of a split wardrobe in that regard. Some are highly polished and some are bulled. And that is all I'm going to do. Literally just give them a few minutes, a little bit of love and care, love and attention, and they're ready to go. Now with these, what I do is I put these, as I said before, I'll either put them in a lint bag, or in this case I tend to put them into a shoe box which has got tissue paper in it as well. Now the thing about that is, even if you haven't got the right box for the shoes and you've got another shoe box that will fit, then use that. It's all about protecting the shoes whilst they're in your wardrobe. Yeah. If you don't do that, a lint bag is ideal because it allows the shoes to breathe, but also it does protect them from dust and debris falling on them, because even in a wardrobe we still get that element on the shoes if you were to just stick them in the bottom. Suede shoes particularly. So if you've got suede shoes, either clean them and put them in a box or put them in a bag. Don't put them in the bottom of your wardrobe without some sort of cover protection. So the video is just a short one, just to show you my regular routine for caring for my shoes. You might have more elaborate ways of doing it. If you do, drop us a line down below and let us know how you do that and what methods you use or employ. Mine is not set in stone. My method is one that I've developed for me over years of using shoes and boots, and I've found that prevention is far better than cure. By doing this on a regular basis, I don't have to work really hard at them to get them up to a good standard. I just keep picking away at them 15-20 minutes and keep them up to a really good standard. And if I see any cracks or anything like that appearing, or the soles are wearing a bit thin, then I make sure I get them to the cobblers on time to actually get them repaired or fixed. Anyway, we do love constructive comments, so if you'd like to give us some, then just jot them down below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you'd like to subscribe, then please feel free to do so. Subscriptions are up at the moment, and that's fantastic news for us as the channel. And thank you very much for those people that have subscribed and those that show ongoing commitment to the channel. Thank you so much for that. So until next time, take care.